Hello there and welcome back. In this video, we're going to take a look at analyzing our shot, take a small look at aces, and then work on selecting our background. So let's hop right in. So I have a blank nuke script here, and let's bring in our shot element. I'm going to go ahead and add our week 3 elements really quick to our shortcuts. We'll hit OK. Excellent. Go to our footage folder and we'll bring in our main footage. And you'll see as this is imported, we're getting an error. It is the color space that is erroring out. And that's because this piece of footage was rendered out of Nuke using aces. And we haven't used aces in this class yet, but we're going to start with that now. So first, let's make it so this isn't erroring and we'll change it back to standard Alexa. Now the color space we've been working with so far has been the set of defaults that Nuke ships with. You can see here we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 input options, and we only have 4 output options. But why do we want to use aces over Nuke's standard color tools? Well, there's a few reasons. The first is that Nuke's default color spaces don't really correspond to any other program. What your Houdini artist is seeing in their render view will not correspond with what we're seeing here in Nuke. The color transformations may be wildly different depending on what their color pipeline is. And it's very important to keep these color transformations uniform and the same as we're working from program to program. You don't want to go over to someone else's monitor and be like, what have you done to my shot? It didn't look like that on my screen. You want that color transformation process to be consistent throughout, and unifying that process is one of the main reasons to use aces. One of the other reasons you want to use aces is because there are over 100 input options in aces and over 10 output options that will show a much greater range of darkness to lightness. It will show your colors in much more vivid detail, and nothing will be clipped just because it's over 1, like it is in Nuke's standard viewer. So let's go ahead and turn on aces and see what some of the benefits of it are. And so we can go to our project settings, go to the color tab, and as of Nuke 12, Nuke actually ships with aces installed. Aces is also known as an OCIO config. And so we'll go ahead and change the color management to OCIO. You'll notice we got this default here. Nothing has changed yet. And then we'll pick aces 1.1. And immediately you'll see that we have aces at the top here. But now our read node is trying to use Nuke's default color space, but we just erased that. So let's go ahead and look through our new options. And as you can see, we have a lot of new color space settings brought in here. And if you have a pipeline TD, you can actually set up these quick shortcuts at the top. But if you go down to color spaces, you can look through all the color space options that Aces has to offer. As you can see, there are many more than Nuke's default color space, and these options allow us to get a more accurate color transformation. And they don't have the exact camera I used. This was shot with a Blackmagic, but using an Arri EI800 is a pretty close approximation. We'll get down into the nitty-gritty details of how exactly I chose this color space in next week's in-depth practical color space video, but for now, just know this is the right one to be using. So we'll select that color space and zoom in and see what we have. If you remember what this image looked like previously, you'll see that this is much more saturated and contrasty and just looks like a much richer image overall. And not only does this make our colors look better, but it also retains luminance detail much better than Nuke's viewer's standard color space. Let's take a look at a quick example just to prove that. So I have a ramp here. Let's go ahead and make a quick gradient. With this ramp, you select 2 points and you can make a little gradient out of there, and that's what we want to do. You can change the color here. You can change the fall off to be smoother, linear. It's a handy little node. And so what I'm going to do is I'm then going to make a grid node. If we zoom in here, we can see this is just creating a grid. We have the number here. We can change the color again. And let's go ahead and just stencil this slightly. so we can see exactly what we're talking about when we say greater range in aces. So within aces, you can see we have all of this nice detail here. Let's go ahead and change this color to be super bright. We'll change this to a value of 3. And you can see we can still see that tiny little variance in there. Let's go ahead and change this back to the nuke color space. All of that detail immediately goes away. We can only see it down here where the value is below 1. And that's why Aces is so powerful. It tone maps the image in a way so you can see the brightest of the bright parts, and it looks a lot more natural and much more visually pleasing than your standard nuke color space. And that's a brief overview of why Aces is better to use than Nuke's standard color space. It's really going to help us out in this shot because we're going to be putting a fairly bright background behind our actor here, and Nuke's standard color space just really wouldn't look that great. Again, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty details of how to use color space properly in next week's video. So now that we have that set up, let's go ahead and get the rest of our project going. We will set this to our project resolution, 1920 by 816. Great, 1 to 86, 1 to 86, that looks good. We've got our color space set, and we're all set up and ready to go. Let's go ahead and play our footage so we can start analyzing our shot and figuring out exactly what we're going to need to do. All right, so obviously we have a green screen shot here. Let's look over it quickly to see what exactly is going to be tricky. Well, one of the first things I'm noticing is that we have some green in the back of this hat here, so we're going to have to be careful that that doesn't end up getting keyed out. And there's also a lot of green in these glasses, and we're going to have to be very careful with this reflection and making sure his head doesn't become semi-transparent. We have some tracking markers here, so tracking shouldn't be too difficult. It looks like a point track to me. And it looks like we also have a little bit of a tracking marker sneaking in behind the beard right here. We're going to have to play around with a solution for that. A paint out could get a little messy. Maybe we can find a more elegant solution where we can key parts of that orange out. We're going to have to dive in to take a look, but it's definitely going to be one of the challenges of this shot. And I think that's as much as we can know right now before diving in and doing a slap comp. So the next thing we need to do is find a background to place this in. Picking a background is going to be very important. This looks somewhat telephoto. It's about shoulder height, maybe chin height on our actor here. It's pretty overcast, so we're going to want to keep those in mind as we're looking for a plate. So my favorite place to find royalty-free images for free, again, is Pexels. And when I was looking for a background in this shot, I realized that the back of his hat here is the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta. And so I went ahead and searched for hot air balloons, and I was trying to find a nice overcast clip. This one I thought looked a little too side lighty. This one, again, you can see I thought it looked really cool, but not only is our background moving, but there's a harsh backlight here, so the lighting wouldn't quite make sense. You can really find any background that you like. It can be an image. Just make sure that it's overcast and the lighting generally matches. I ended up selecting this one because I felt like the lighting was pretty comparable to what we had in the plate. It's wrapping around them a little more than our actor here, but I think that's something we can adjust, and the general tone feels like something we could make work. So I just went ahead and downloaded this. Then once we have that downloaded, I'm going to go ahead and bring it in. And I'm going to change this to matte paint. Utility sRGB texture. Let's go ahead and analyze our second element. I know this is much longer than our project's 86 frames, so another thing we can do with our viewer here is we can change the frame count that it's displaying to input, and now it's going to display the full 467 frames. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. And the first thing you'll notice is that this is in slow motion, so we're definitely going to have to speed it up. It also looks like this is pretty noisy. That's what you can expect from an MP4 file type, so we're definitely going to have to clean that up. It looks like there's not too much shakiness going on, so I'm not sure we'll have to stabilize this when we put it in the background. But I think this will be a good candidate for our green screen shot. I think this flame will look really good when it's ignited right there, so we should definitely try to get that in the back end of our clip. And I think this will end up working really nicely. So we can go ahead and change this back to global. And go back. Great, now we have all of our elements in and our project is nice and set up. So we're going to stop here, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at getting a quick version 1 slap comp ready. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.